Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Environment Sustainability Committee meeting number 11 of 2023 on the 28th of November. Checking councillors' attendance, we have an apology from Councillor Jacob Madsen. He's had to, at short notice, shoot out to another location. Would anyone like to move that we accept his apology? Or I read it off there, do I? Sorry?
Just apologised.
Yeah. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. We'll just note his apology. Move to acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land and waters we share. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, cultures, customs and stories of proud people. Committee members, are there any declarations of interest in matters on the agenda today? No? Then we'll move to next item, which is matters, business outstanding, sorry. There are none. So first item is confirmation of minutes. I have a member of committee who wishes to move. Thank you, Councillor Fackner. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzman. Is there any discussion with regarding those minutes? No? And I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Moving to officers' reports, the item 2 is the City of Ipswich Biosecurity Plan. This is a report concerning the City of Ipswich Biosecurity Plan review undertaken to revise the expiring Biosecurity Plan endorsed in 2018. May I ask the appropriate officer to come forward, please?
Good afternoon, I'm Hayden Taylor, the Animal Management and Biosecurity Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Just running through the report. In the purpose of report and background, it states that the draft biosecurity plan integrates into the policy framework provided by the Natural Environment Strategy. May I ask you to, even though there is quite an amount of information in the report, just specifically, how is that proposed to be achieved?
Yeah, sure. So the biosecurity plan will integrate into the Natural Environment Strategy effectively as an implementation program of the Natural Environment Strategy. So the biosecurity plan prioritises the management of invasive species in support of the objectives outlined in the Natural Environment Strategy. So within the plan, it, I guess, touches on the species that are important if a landholder or council wants to contribute to some of those specific objectives out of the Natural Environment Strategy. They can prioritise certain species to do that on their own land.
Very good, thank you. So it also states that it addresses how biosecurity threatens, how it will address how biosecurity threatens the achievement of the priority objectives defined within the strategy. Can you detail how that will be undertaken?
Sure. I guess how it threatens, I guess biosecurity threatens the achievement of all the objectives in the Natural Environment Strategy is probably the best way of putting it. So it doesn't contribute directly to one, it ultimately, managing the invasive species that are considered biosecurity within the plan will contribute to all. By targeting some of those species that I guess specifically relate to the priority areas, so in the example of waterways and wetland health improvement, if we were to target species that had a negative impact on our waterways and our wetland health, we're ultimately contributing to the outcome of the Natural Environment Strategy. Does that answer your question?
It does, mostly. Reason why I'm asking is particularly for residents who would like probably a simplified version to gain understanding. The Biosecurity Act 2014 is not very, it's not an easily read document. So for stakeholders, our residents in particular, to be able to gain a better understanding as to how council's biosecurity plan moving forward defines what will be done. So also, it says that the draft biosecurity plan simplifies the approach to the management of invasive plants and animals for residents, visitors, industry and government. How is that proposed to be achieved? How is it, this plan, simplifying the approach?
I guess it simplifies it by moving away from we're not trying to explain the Biosecurity Act, all the different terms and all the terminology that's used. And I guess probably a short example of how we're simplifying it is if you look at the section titled General Biosecurity Obligation within the plan, we've summarised just a few quick steps where landholders can take the obligation, which is, I guess, a quite specific legislative piece, and it's fairly complex and broad in nature. And what we do with that section in the document is we simplify it down in just a few key headings, how you can go through the process of discharging your obligation by starting with just understanding your property, prioritising the species based on the natural environment strategy outcome you wanted to achieve, take some steps to start reducing the size, the abundance, the frequency of your infestations, and then ultimately just monitor your land moving forward to make sure that invasive species aren't reinfesting your land and creating more trouble for you. So the old plan really tried to explain or demystify the Biosecurity Act. The new plan just tries to give landholders a simple document they can mostly refer to and jump straight into and get I guess, into the meat, which is treating species and managing pests on their land.
Excellent. A basic guide on how to.
Yeah.
That is much simpler. And I think that is what our residents were looking for. And how does the local government, Ipswich City Council, play the role within that?
I guess we'll be looking at the same approach and we've outlined it in a lot of detail in the council's main functions section, which the previous plan was a bit light on, where we've provided there's some key points that the local government will be doing to look at, or I guess support landholders in managing invasive plants and animals on their land. So, we've provided some strategy, and we'll also look at what council does as an organisation, but when it comes to landholders on their property, we're not proposing just enforcement of the Biosecurity Act. It's a partnership with landholders, and I guess this revision of the Biosecurity Plan is the first step on that journey to show landholders that we've now created a document that they can jump to and use. It provides a lot of information on council services and the support we offer. And when we're going out to landholders' properties, we'll be looking to engage them and support them in, I guess, sharing some of the knowledge that the officers of council have to help them simplify the management of pests on their land. That's
excellent, Mr. Taylor, because that's specifically as a representative of our residents, that is the feedback that I've received all along, and that is what I think the general aim that residents wanted was support from and guidance from their local government in terms of their obligations. Yeah. Moving on to the community and other consultation, if I may say to begin with, as a statement that thank you very much for the consultation process that you undertook. It's very good and has delivered some good outcomes. If I may, committee, I'll just run through a couple of those items. In section 1.2.1, page 4 of the report, I just have to adjust my screen, I'm sorry. The graph in the community engagement report on page 4, can I just ask for a bit of explanation on what that is displaying?
Yeah, I guess it looked at the key areas of council's focus in terms of some questions we prepared for in the survey. I don't actually have the questions in front of me, but ultimately they were looking at I guess, if you took the biosecurity plan and then we captured what we considered to be council's main functions. I think in the original draft we referred to it as council's role. We were asking landholders if they agreed that these were the key areas that council should be focusing on when managing invasive plants and animals. But ultimately, the graph is, I guess, capturing the sentiment from some of those points. But I don't have the list of actual questions that we put forward as those points from the survey.
So the way the bar graph is displayed, with 0 on the left indicating strongly disagree, through to 100 on the right of the horizontal axis, strongly agree. And then each bar has a numerical figure as a percentile above. Can you give us an interpretation of what how those figures are displayed there? What does that mean? So I suppose if I narrow down my question, the far right, strongly agree. Does that say that 18.6% of respondents strongly agree?
Yes.
And is the 90 saying as a scale of
If a scale
0
from,
to 100,
from 0 to 10 in dot points, I believe it would be looking at. And 18.6% indicated they were 100% supportive, or I guess somewhere in the range of 0 to 10.
Okay. Well, that's, if I may say, as an observation, it states there no responses disagreed or strongly disagreed with the proposed key areas. That's a very good response from the respondents. I don't think you could wish for much better than that. On page 6, that graph, if I may go to that one now. That's the type of property that where respondents had primarily noticed pest, plants and animals in Ipswich. Just note that it was a very high percentage for conservation estate and bushland reserve. Is there a reasoning?
I guess in part you could probably explain it that a lot of the people that are engaged are probably also fairly avid users of those conservation estates and bushland reserves. It's not necessarily indicative that the conservation estates and bushland reserves are, I guess, swamped by invasive plants and animals.
Yeah.
More so the audience that I guess is providing most of the response of people who would tend to notice these sorts of things when they're visiting the reserves. Council does every 5 years, I believe, undertake a survey of, I guess, all the plants and animals that are inside those conservation estates. There is a name for it, I can't remember it. And within there, it seems that some of the species that are detected are just common species that are generally fairly abundant, and they're not necessarily the primary bit of flora or fauna within the conservation estates. So there's some, I guess, some incursion from other adjacent land holdings that then are noticed by members of the community when they're visiting those estates.
Yes. So I suppose if the management of that biosecurity matter in particularly council-owned and managed conservation estates and bushland reserves, if the viewers know what they're looking at, they're going to notice it there. But I wanted to make the point that because that is a high response there, that yes, it's the invasive species there are not the predominant species within that area. There would be some existing, and that the management and control of those species is a work in progress for the land manager, being council in this situation.
Yeah, and I guess it's a bit indicative of some of the sentiment in the community, which is that I guess the community engagement showed that the community would like to see council being, I guess, as active as possible in this space, and potentially highlighting that through the responses as I guess showed that the conservation estates, given that it's the only option that really focuses on council-owned land, or one that you can directly link to being under council's control, has come through there.
Yeah. On page 7, the table that commences on page 7. So some of the responses there I viewed. So in terms of particularly that I was not aware figures, I think quite high, such as the free permit to dispose of. So we offer a permitting system for our residents if they have manually pulled fireweed, and they can apply for a permit to dispose of that at council's refuse transfer stations without fee.
Yeah.
It's 84% there are not aware. Others are the 100+ invasive weeds of Ipswich, a guide for landholders. 56% of respondents weren't aware of that publication. So where I'm going, I suppose, is that a message for us to receive that some more community education or information would be good to be provided to solve that.
Yeah, I think that's come through fairly clearly there, and I guess the video we did recently on fireweed specifically that outlines some of the services that council offers that may not be as well known is one of the avenues we've looked at to try and, I guess, increase the knowledge out there within the community, but still a bit of work to do based on the feedback from the community engagement. Yes.
No, I do notice that under the feedback and discussion that is highlighted and addressed, yeah, there's definitely some information that's provided to council in that consultation that is very valuable, and I'm quite sure that that has been taken on board by yourself and your officers to be able to improve further moving forward. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On page 9, sorry, I do have to point out and just ask the question. It states the title is Why We Engaged. Ipswich City Council developed the Biosecurity Plan 2018-2023 plan. Is that the correct?
No, it's not. So that's an administrative error in the document. It's Ipswich City Council developed the biosecurity plan. We aren't putting a date range on the new one because it'll be a living document that will be updated as and when we need it. And I guess in this community engagement report, the plan being referenced is the previous plan, but it's not actually the one that we're talking about on this page.
Yeah.
So we'll get that fixed up.
So how would it read, do you suggest?
I would read that Ipswich City Council developed the biosecurity plan or a draft biosecurity plan and engage key stakeholders with the purpose of this engagement being to facilitate community participation in the review of the biosecurity plan so that the management of invasive species is relevant to the current environment.
Very good. More than happy with that. And on page 12, if I may just conclude, wrap it up, my questions, I suppose, in the conclusion and recommendations item there. Those 3 points that detail the review and analysis of the data from all engagement activities, identified key findings from the community. As we've just discussed, the primary sentiment identified through the community engagement was an overall agreement with the Ipswich Biosecurity Plan focus areas. Survey respondents identified an opportunity for greater education across the community around invasive species. And that finally, one of the key concerns from community centres around general biosecurity obligation and how this will be implemented. So the recommendation is sharing further details around when authoritative action would be taken and how this will be effectively managed. So I assume that any land manager doesn't want to receive a notice. It's more about, there is still always that concern that you're going to, if you're not aware that there's particular plant species on your property, or if there's a fox living in the back corner or something like that, that as to what the process will be, that's what I think the community want to know.
Yeah.
So wrapping all that up, if I may say to yourself, Mr. Taylor, and through the CEO, that I think the engagement was absolutely a success and very much assisted with the final draft of the biosecurity plan.
It did, and thank you.
I open any other member of committee have any questions? Councillor Fechner.
Just about the plan itself and the way that it's managed and administered internally through planning and regulatory services. I've got two questions. Firstly, we'll deal with the fact that it sits in planning and regulatory services, but your biggest allies are across in another department in environment sustainability. Just looking for insights as to how that works operationally and, you know, the joint ventures that you might undertake with environment sustainability to get the best outcomes.
Yeah, I guess environment sustainability, you're right, this document has a lot of links to their department, and I guess the history of how the document came to be primarily managed by planning and regulatory services relates to the initial introduction of the Biosecurity Act, where the plan was once upon a time promoted as the mechanism for council to control or define the general biosecurity obligation for landholders. And ultimately, when you, I guess, took that back through the layers of the Act, it is defining what becomes then the compliance function of council. So in its most simple form, the document sits with the Planning and Regulatory Services Department because it does inform council's compliance action. What I guess we've learnt over the years since the Biosecurity Act came in is it's much better placed as a document that informs that to a lesser extent and ultimately provides insights and support to the community is the major piece of work that it does there. In terms of how much we engage with environment sustainability, they're on our floor now, which is great because we can just wander down. When it came to the biosecurity plan being drafted up, we were having early meetings or meetings quite early on with the Environment Sustainability Department. I guess, you know, that crystallised itself in some of the really tight integration with the Natural Environment Strategy, which obviously is a strategy for our natural environment that's primarily driven through the Environment Sustainability Department. And ultimately, I guess getting some good insights from the officers on what species are of primary concern to each of those priority areas of the Natural Environment Strategy. We meet regularly, we catch up quite often through, I guess, formal meetings and then informal catch-ups. And ultimately, we will shift our focus now from the draft plan to developing some of the actions that feed into the implementation of the plan, which will ultimately feature in a future review of the document.
How much compliance activity do we actually ever have in this space, say in the course of a quarter or a financial year? How often are we engaging or enforcing biosecurity to the community?
I guess we're enforcing very, very little. We don't issue a large number of biosecurity orders. We do issue, I guess, a small number of advice letters where we'll send out a letter and a fact sheet to a landholder to get them started with some formal information on the species we found on their land. We find that in the average case, we're actually able to go out there, have a conversation with the landholder, talk to them about, I guess, some of the key things we found when the officers have had to support other landholders in controlling the species, engage them, we'll go around the property with them, open and, I guess, sharing information with them. So generally speaking, they are, I guess, taking action to control the species, which then satisfies the general biosecurity obligation. So there's no need to progress into enforcement action, I guess, for lack of a better term. Landholders generally want to see these species controlled on their land, and sometimes it might just be there's some support in identifying or support in what and how to control the species that gets them over the line.
And I guess I just wanted to put on the record and seek your thoughts about the future plans, you know, when developing an action plan associated with the biosecurity plan, you know, how much of that collaborative work happens with environment and sustainability and how much of the work will then, you know, be carried out by environment and sustainability, and have we considered the potential resourcing impacts of that?
I guess environment sustainability throughout that process will have some work that will need to be done, but also so will probably some of the other departments like AIS. It's potentially too early to say how much of an impact that'll have, because while the actions at a high level have been, I guess, workshopped, we haven't actually got to the point where they're defined enough to really measure how much impact will be. But ultimately, the Environment Sustainability Department are, I guess, well engaged, and this is, for all intents and purposes, part of their core business. So we're not going to be necessarily, setting too high an expectation, but certainly we're all quite invested and willing to put in the work to see this biosecurity plan implemented and integrated across the organisation properly.
Any further questions from committee? No? Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Committee, the recommendation is that the City of Ipswich Biosecurity Plan be adopted. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzmann. I'll open the matter for discussion. Councillor Fechner.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge the significant work that's gone into this and paying particular attention to other strategies that we have already endorsed. I really liked the layout where the natural environment strategy and its outcomes and aspirations were listed on the left-hand side, and some of those inhibiting and prohibiting, factors were on the right-hand side. I think the document flows really well. It says, if we want to get these really great outcomes here, well, then we'll try and minimise the impacts of these infestations or these weeds there. It reads really well, and it kind of plays into, our heightened importance of, those environmental matters. And it's something that I know you, Mr. Fireweed Man, Chairperson, you hear about it a lot. We're wondering, how do we manage some of these infestations which, seem to be out of control, or residents might not think that, we've thought about. I guess bringing it back down into this plan, but also planning what our next steps and actions are, will be really important to articulate to the community, to say we acknowledge that there are issues, across the local government area and indeed across the state in this space. But here are our priority areas where we feel like we'll get best bang for our buck. Here's where we are identifying how we can be more strategic in this space. And I think that's where this document is leading, to say, yes, we get it, it's difficult, but we need to focus on these areas here to make significant and meaningful improvements.
Absolutely. Very well said, Councillor. I agree also that I think the new biosecurity plan does fit hand in glove with the strategy, the natural environment strategy, and that is how it should be. It should be a linear flow through, so that what we have identified as being important is carried out. I also agree in that the layout and the readability of the plan is very, very good. For anyone who is a new resident to our city, those who want to come and have the great lifestyle that we offer here in the City of Ipswich, particularly in our, or for an example, in our western areas who have large lots there, they may have now or in the future some infestations that to no fault of their own occur, and they need to be able to reference information which is very readily available in this document. It is quite clearly laid out as to the situation and processes. It assists people to identify and make that decision as a land manager, what outcomes need to be achieved and the process to get there. And for it to be highlighted that the local government is here in a supportive way to assist with the education, with the information, and also importantly, what a lot of landholders have said to me is that it's that collective knowledge where bringing together neighbouring or area localised landholders to discuss things, particularly if you're not from a rural background, knowing if you're going to use chemical use for eradication of a pest plant, what is the best one to use? What's the best application rate? Do you need PPE for that? Do you need to advise your neighbour of that in case there's spray drift? All those sort of things, the local government is there to assist, to bring people together and provide that information, and ultimately for everybody achieve the right outcome. If I may say, CEO, I believe that your officers have absolutely delivered on this one.
Thank you, Chair. As always, I'll pass it straight to the team, as you have already done. So we do have a great team, very passionate about this important work. Thank you very much for your support and leadership.
Any further discussion? No? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much. Item 3 is Off-Site Stormwater Quality Improvement Program Annual Report. This is a report concerning the Off-Site Stormwater Quality Improvement Program, formerly called the Stormwater Quality Offset Program, status from commencement until June 2023. The annual report provides an overview of the program, an assessment of the financial contributions received, project expenditures and the off-site water quality improvement projects delivered. The report specifically highlights progress in the last financial year, including the completion of 3 creek stabilisation projects and the near completion of a bioretention basin. The report also highlights some of the improvements to the program that are currently underway, including new policies and procedures, guidelines, developer fee review, and preparation of an off-site delivery plan. May I ask the appropriate officer to come forward?
Good afternoon, Belinda Wellband, Team Leader for Strategic Catchment and Conservation Planning.
And Brittany Mullins, Environmental Engineer.
Good afternoon to you both. Just start off with within the purpose of the report and background, it details, in short, it is to achieve a pollutant load reduction, that being nitrogen, phosphorus and suspended solids, and prevent pollutants from entering our waterways. And the annual report also identifies some of those items that I just detailed in the overview, particularly a developer fee review. Our residents expect high standards in this regard. When it comes to development, it's all well and good that we are growing, but it is the way we are growing, and if it is done, I believe our residents expect it to be done in a very sustainable way. Can you elaborate on how this is being achieved?
Sorry. So developers are required to achieve certain pollutant reductions associated with development. This is in state planning policy as a requirement. Developers have currently the opportunity through council's planning processes to either achieve those reductions on site within the developments or to provide a financial contribution to council. Then we will provide I guess, larger facilities in appropriate locations, as close as possible to the developments. So part of this process is delivering stormwater quality improvement assets, which do achieve those pollutant reductions. Where possible, we're also trying to build in co-benefits with these assets as well. So maybe not necessarily just a bioretention basin, but something like Small Creek is a classic example where we've integrated community facilities into the space and created opportunities for our community to engage directly with the environment while achieving those pollutant reductions.
Very good. It's a good explanation. Knowing it's highlighted there in the purpose of the report that new urban development in Queensland is required to manage stormwater to meet the water quality requirements of the state planning policy. In Ipswich, it's guided by the Ipswich Planning Scheme Implementation Guideline number 24, Stormwater Management, to minimise the impacts of development on water quality and subsequently regional waterway health. And that furthermore, the Ipswich City Council Stormwater Quality Offset Program Implementation Plan provides guidance to ensure the delivery of coordinated water quality improvement projects. Could you please detail some of those specific projects and how they achieve that?
So examples. Yep. So we've delivered, I think we've delivered 18 projects now across the city. Yep. And that's with 42% of the funding we've received. So yeah, achieving really good outcomes. So we've got Small Creek that Belinda mentioned, which is a great project.
Absolutely it is.
Won some awards and yeah, engages the community while also delivering those water quality benefits. We've also got Jim Donald Wetland, which you're probably familiar with as well. So another great one that local bush kindies can come down and engage with the asset itself, as well as providing those water quality benefits. There's been like a number of bird species sightings too, which weren't in the area previously. So you're getting those co-benefits again, as well as achieving your stormwater quality improvements. And then we've got some small bioretentions around the place to kind of set in your natural bushland setting. So trying to blend them in nicely with the existing landscape. So not so much a community feature, but still a great natural feature.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm glad that you did highlight Small Creek there. And it's pretty openly known that there was initially a bit of community pushback there. But as we have had a flood event to sub-events of the flood event last year, I was in the middle of the rain, out there in a raincoat, in the middle of the night, observing how that was functioning, and absolutely outstanding. It definitely serves its purpose. And then during the lighter flows, how it manages any of the contaminants that do end up in that waterway, returning it to that natural state definitely achieves those aims that we were discussing before. And comparing to what it was prior, a concreted centre of open ditch with mowed grass, that's not the Australian natural environment. And the work that was done to return that back to what it should be is amazing to view, and to see when it does operate and the functionality of it is outstanding. So that's definitely a very good example. The others in terms of the creek stabilisation projects, look, I've been very fortunate to be taken out on site by officers to view firsthand some of that work, and it's Rome wasn't built in a day. So for us to achieve the aims as described will take some time, but I do believe that those in our community, our residents who are keenly watching and observing how we're managing that on their behalf, I believe are very supportive. Does any other member of committee have any further questions? Councillor Fackner.
Thank you, through the chair, and these might be better answered by somebody else, but we'll give it a go here. In terms of the financial implications of the program, the report points out in a very polite way that the cost to deliver these assets has exponentially grown. However, our ability to collect what's rightfully owed to us to compensate us for that hasn't necessarily grown. Is our only opportunity to change that through the fees and charges just once a year, or it's kind of wondering when we became reasonably aware that this was an issue that we needed to compensate for? Because I don't think that this program should be used as get out of jail free cards for developers.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right. We don't want to use that as a get out of jail free card. So it's probably in the last year with the large interest rates and everything that's been going crazy, it's been a dramatic notice of the increase in construction costs, and especially with our most recently constructed projects, we've definitely felt that hit. Luckily, we're in a great position with the overall offset program that we're overachieving, so we have a little bit of flexibility there, but we do need to be careful going forward. So that triggered us to undertake a broader review of the program, which included reviewing that fee to the developer. So there's a report.
What's the maximum charge? Do you know?
There is no maximum charge.
So it's as determined by the local government, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
So, yeah.
and we've got some ideas to talk through that during budget discussion? Or is it at a point where there are significant applications being made to council and we're losing money on applications? What is the frequency of someone actually paying into the offset account to offset their obligation?
So the frequency of the uptake of the program's been pretty consistent, like steadily increasing over the
I
life
imagine
of
it
the
would. If I was a
program.
developer, I would pay into that as well.
Yep, so again, another trigger to increase the developer fee. Sorry, I'm blanking now.
Do you know, just roughly a quarter, how many applications would trigger this, or how many developers are opting to go down the offset path?
Was it the last financial year? I think we took 4 or 5 million
Yes.
in offset contributions. Sorry, I can't give you numbers.
No,
I can
that's
take
great.
that
Yeah,
one on notice if you like,
those
but
estimates are
in
perfect.
terms of dollar value.
Yeah,
So they are taking it up.
It should,
Ask that myself.
thank you.
Brett Davey, General Manager, Planning and Regulatory Services.
Welcome back.
Thank you. On the financial front, the financial contribution figure has always been set, probably not entirely on the basis of cost recovery, because there's a balance between a benefit to the developer of not having to construct it on site, a benefit for us not having to maintain many small assets. And so then the price point on that was set to be somewhat attractive. So part of this exercise is for us to review what the cost of the program is in terms of its delivery versus what the cost to the industry would be to construct, and see if we can plot a path somewhere between them to still make it a somewhat attractive prospect, noting that it's overall financially beneficial for us to not have lots of small stormwater improvement assets across a city, but to consolidate them. And that's the primary, I suppose, benefit of this. And the other benefit is that when we do that, we do have an opportunity to get more bang for buck.
Yeah, and is there ever a scenario where an applicant is not eligible to participate in the program because it just doesn't make sense for anyone?
Yes, yeah. So certain locations don't function well without having stormwater quality improvement. So, for example, if they're close to a waterway, if the site has got dispersive soils, large format subdivisions, there are other criteria. So part of this review has been to reconsider some of the criteria because we had broadened the horizons of where we look at these types of offset arrangements. And in some locations, it's also harder to then go back in and find spots in that catchment to then install the stormwater quality improvement. So all of those considerations are part of the review.
Okay. And the review will be undertaken and implemented prior to the turnover of the next financial year?
And on that, well, the review is ongoing, but it's linked to the new planning scheme. So we're setting a new policy position with the new scheme The determination of the cost per square metre is a
and
fees and
charges,
charges
yep.
decision. And to answer the earlier question, you can make a fees and charges change at any time you become aware of the need to correct an issue, noting those principles of achieving a balance in what we're levying the development industry.
So we understand that there is kind of an imbalance right now, as spoken to in the report, but we can't quantify that at this point in time to make a. There's no recommendation to change the fees and charges as a result of this annual report.
Yeah, not a direct
So
nexus.
we're working towards that. It'll
Yes.
take us some time to really understand and
Yeah.
flesh that out. Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Davey.
That's all your questions, Councillor?
Just noting that the percentage of funds spent is only at 42%, so there's some room to continue the work on this, and I know that that comes down to resourcing and our ability to forward plan in that space. But just wanted to, understand if there are any other blockers in this way that's stopping us from expending the money, because legally we have to, right, in that way.
Absolutely, we've taken on that obligation for those stormwater quality improvements now. We are doing another delivery plan that will look 5 to 10 years ahead. Locations is difficult sometimes to find appropriate locations for these things, but undertaking a comprehensive review of that again, we'll come up with a forward delivery plan which will demonstrate how those funds will be expended.
Great job. Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Yeah, so I do note in the last paragraph of the purpose of report and background that it also identifies the work undertaken during the year to improve the program governance and delivery, including new policy and procedures, which Mr. Davey alluded to, guidelines, a developer fee review, and preparation of an off-site delivery plan. May I ask how far along are we in development of that plan?
It started.
It started.
Yeah. We do require some extra resource, which we are in the process of recruiting in order to assist with the development of that. We do have delivery plans, very high-level ones at the moment, that have been done twice previously. We're looking to, I think, create a more comprehensive plan this time, which will assess in more detail the feasibility of the options that are on the table, so we can have more confidence in what we will be doing each year moving forwards.
Okay, good. Any further questions? No? Thank you very much to you both. Committee, the recommendation is that the Ipswich City Council off-site stormwater quality improvement program annual update be received and the contents noted. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Open the matter for discussion. Councillor Fechner.
Pretty keen to see the fees and charges reviews, Chair, just to ensure that we're not losing out and our residents aren't losing out in that way. And I just wanted to put a flag in the ground for us to think about this program a little bit more in our budget discussions this coming financial year. When we're thinking about the underspend in the program to date, it's going to be really important that we understand what that 5-year plan is and try to expend some of that money. Cost increases, going to, potentially impact on what or how much we're able to deliver moving forward. So spending in the early years might be wise in this place as well. So just thinking about all of those, ramifications of, getting a report like this that says we're doing some great work, but, we need to amend the fees and charges. We've also got a significant amount of money sitting there associated with this.
Yes.
We need to start expending it now.
Yes,
And I
the
think of
price of
the
everything
opportunity
goes
that
up.
we've lost already, and potentially banking some of that money rather than having had projects, in the ground already. So I think it's pretty timely that we consider that at our next budget discussion.
Absolutely, very well said. Part of the plan needs to be the plan to ensure that financially. The cost of works is covered, particularly with the rising cost of works. It costs more and more year on year now to deliver infrastructure. That definitely has to be taken into account, and that moving forward, we have a forward view through that plan, the delivery plan, that we have identified locations and designs already ready to go. Any further discussion? No? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much. I have no notices of motion or matters arising, so I'll close the meeting at 2:36. The next committee, Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee, will commence at 2:46. Thank you, everyone.